airport security asked Oscar Wilde, do you have anything to declare? And he was like, only but my genius.
This podcast contains graphic descriptions that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Now, with that being said, welcome to the Mortal Musings podcast.
Right, let's do this.
So I have a question for you.
I have a question for you.
Okay, you go. Your turn.
Yeah. So, do you remember ages ago, you started an episode off by asking me a question? It was
Name something that scares the bejesus out of you.
No.
Oh.
You have 3 apples, and then you have 3 friends with you. How do you evenly distribute the apples?
I have 3 apples.
Yeah. 3 apples, 3 friends, and yourself.
Okay. Do I have to?
And you have a knife as well, if that'll help.
Can we not get into all this fractions and shit? I can't do that.
Okay, well, you're safe then. Apparently, I'm a psychopath because my answer straight away was kill one of the friends with the knife.
Oh my God.
And
I thought this was a maths problem. I was scared I was going to look a fool.
Well, it is a maths problem, but you solve it by killing a friend.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I answered it and it was, yeah, you're a psychopath.
I would agree. That's not right. Right.
But it's logic.
Hang on. If you were going to force me to an answer, yeah? If my option was divide up the apples and I had to do it some way,
yeah,
I can't answer because I'm too thick to, like, it would take me I'd have to actually get a pen and paper and work it out, yeah?
Okay.
My second option would be, I don't want to do the maths. Here, you guys just take one each. I'll go without.
Okay.
I wouldn't
but that's
think
not part of it.
That's what I thought you were going to go, that's a cop-out answer. So I didn't say. No, I would not kill one of my friends to solve the equation. No.
I would for an apple.
Okay.
I didn't see it as it's a psychopath answer.
How can you not?
As soon as I heard the thing,
you're killing someone over an apple.
Well, it's like get rid of a friend. And because there's a knife there, I was like, oh, that's what they're looking for. Kill the friend and then evenly distribute the apples.
Nah, I think you're fucked. That's not normal. That's not, no.
Oh.
No.
So what was your question for me?
Mine was a bit more innocent. I was going to ask you if you have an unpopular opinion.
Probably.
I'll tell you mine first because from the sounds of it, you're going to go very dark with your unpopular opinion.
Okay.
Mine was like relatively benign. I was just going to say, unlike a lot of other people, I think Topher Grace was brilliant casting in Spider-Man 3.
I don't know what that is.
What?
Tofu what? I heard Spider-Man 3. I know what that is.
Tofu! Did you say tofu to me?
Yeah.
Topher Grace.
Topher.
The actor.
Someone named their child Topher.
Topher Grace. He played Eric Foreman in That 70s Show.
Oh, I didn't watch that.
Well, you've seen a lot of it because I watched it.
Yeah, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, but you know who he is. You'd know him to see him.
I don't think I do.
You've seen Spider-Man 3.
I know Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
We don't really talk about him anymore.
No.
So who's he in Spider-Man?
He played Venom.
No.
He was Eddie Brock.
No.
What do you mean, no?
No. Venom is Tom Hardy.
In the Venom movie series, but in Spider-Man 3, he played Eddie Brock.
Oh, the first one. Well, third one.
Yeah, that's...
The one that came first.
Yeah.
I
really liked him. I thought he was great.
I didn't really have an opinion of him.
Everyone wanted him to be like, I don't know what the hell in their mind. They thought like he was too kind of like, I don't know if it was timid or kind of whatever it was about him. But I thought he was, and I thought that to me seemed like the character. He was this kind of, like the character slightly more kind of weaselly and whatever, you know, kind of like he hated Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And then Venom took over and he was a right bastard. But everyone hates him in it. I don't understand it.
I like the original Gobbler.
Gobbler?
Green
Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Gobbler?
Where did I get Gobbler? The father.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe.
He was really... Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was really good, I thought. I ain't got an unpopular opinion or a popular
you
one.
did actually say that you agreed with the majority that Topher Grace was terrible casting.
I could probably pick out someone better.
No, you couldn't.
Charlie Hunnam. He would do a good one.
Where are you? I'm not saying you would, but where are you getting him from? You just pluck that out of your arse.
Someone who would be better than him.
The first name that came to your head, you're like, he'd be better. Yes. So you do agree with the majority?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Go on.
Yeah, what?
Go on, what?
Do you have an unpopular opinion? Again, something more trivial. Not as dark as killing your friend over an apple.
Unpopular opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think cyclists riding two abreast is fair game to be nudged out of the way by your car.
But you see, that's an interesting one, because I don't know how many people would agree with the nudging them out the way. But I say it is a popular opinion not to be two abreast.
Yeah, because they're not supposed to be two abreast.
Well, they are. In Ireland, it's legal to be two abreast.
That's ridiculous.
I don't make the rules.
Half of the roads are only a car width.
I don't make the rules, you know? But it's law.
Listeners, your opinion. I bet there is even cyclists who use the roads who are against that. Not against me, against riding two abreast.
I'm not a cyclist, but I wouldn't do it. If I was. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. It would make me too nervous anyway.
Well,
you'd
always make sure you're the
rage.
curbside.
I wouldn't. I would just be single file. I would never do it.
So, unpopular opinions aside, and the psychopath quiz, what have you got for us today? And if it's anything like last week, it depends on whether I make you a cup of tea or not tonight.
So I'm not going to bring you down quite as much as I did last week.
I don't think you could.
No, it was pretty rough. Today we're going to be talking about Elizabeth Sugrue, also known as Lady Betty, one of, if not the first, female executioner.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, we're going back a few years here, so bear in mind that there's not a lot of documented information on her life. Quite a lot is speculation, which can be contradictory, and accounts from people who claim to have known her. So, I apologise if there's any vagueness in this. Yeah. With a story like this, so much ends up becoming tales. It can be hard to separate fact from the fiction. Yeah. So, take segments of this with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. But if you tell me something interesting, I'm going to run around shouting it as fact.
Oh, you're going to take this as an absolute. Did you hear about that Lady Betty?
Yeah.
It's thought that Elizabeth was born in County Kerry sometime between 1740 and 1750. Her parents' names are unknown.
What?
Her parents are unknown.
I heard that differently. I heard it as her parents' names are unknown.
No, we don't know who her parents are.
Like Pam, unknown. Jacob, unknown.
Well, although that is a traditional Irish name. No, we don't know who her parents are.
Yeah.
It is believed that Elizabeth did have some level of education and was literate, which for the time, a woman having some level of education is notable.
Yeah.
The thought that Elizabeth was educated has been reported by both Charlotte O'Connor Eccles, a writer and journalist, as well as William Wilde, who was a surgeon and writer. He was also Oscar Wilde's father, if you didn't know.
As soon as you said the name, I didn't know it was Oscar Wilde's father. I'd heard the name though, so that's probably
it rung a bell. Rung a bell. I actually have a little side story about William for you.
Okay.
A little bit of goss. William Wilde actually ended up in a bit of bother himself.
Can I have a guess?
Mm-hmm.
Helping his son to smuggle through the airport?
No.
I'm only saying that because airport security asked Oscar Wilde, do you have anything to declare? And he was like, only but my genius.
That's exactly what he said.
He did.
It wasn't. It wouldn't have been an airport at that stage. It would have been before.
Declaring items, so it's airport security.
No, I'm pretty sure traveling by flight was into the 1900s.
That makes sense.
I'm not saying you didn't, I'm saying it would have been by boat.
Train,
possibly, yeah.
Okay, not an airport. But is that what it was?
Is that what it was? What?
He helped his son Oscar.
No.
Oh.
You leave Oscar Wilde out of this. So there was an accusation made against William by a patient of his.
You say it. I don't want to guess it.
Yeah, it'd be a bit tactless of you to add to the accusations.
Yeah. I think I know where it's going.
I bet you do. Mary Travers, a long-term patient of his, accused him of sexual assault while she was under chloroform.
There it is. Chloroform?
Chloroform.
That's what they put in swimming pools, isn't it?
No, that's chlorine.
Yeah.
Chloroform knocks you out, yeah.
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 Yeah, because you wouldn't put chloroform in a swimming pool.
No, I would hope not. No.
It'd be a disaster.
No. Following Mary's accusation against William, she then had pamphlets made up which parodied William and his wife. She then distributed them outside of the building where William was giving a lecture.
Oh.
So she's not letting this go. She's on one. When Jane, William's wife, kicked off about her behaviour, Mary brought a case of defamation against her. So during this case,
yeah,
William refused to take the stand. So people kicked off. For him to not take the stand was considered to be ungentlemanly behaviour.
Okay.
He wasn't acknowledging it,
Coward.
Mary would go on to win her case and was awarded a farthing in damages. Now, I'm not quite sure what, if I was to convert, I tried, I don't know what the hell it is, but it's not a lot.
So
it's jack
a
shit.
farthing, I know, is less than 1 pence. 1 new pence.
She basically got acknowledged. Her feelings got acknowledged, and that was about it. You know what I mean?
I think it's less than a quarter. In fact, I think it's less than a quarter of 1 pence UK money.
Mm-hmm.
I can ask my dad, but not now. We're recording.
Well, yeah.
And he wasn't alive when they was using farthings. I don't think.
No, he wasn't.
No. So basically, she got fuck all.
Like I said, it was basically they acknowledged what she said, but the monetary gain was minimal.
Yeah.
But after this, William decided it was best to move out of Dublin and head back to the West Coast. Because he's originally from Roscommon.
Okay.
So he headed back over to that neck of the woods. It did do damage to his reputation.
Good.
Well, I mean, when I was reading about this, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, he was a ladies' man, and he had children out of wedlock," which, yes, was shocking for the time.
Can't call him a ladies' man when he's doing it to women who are under.
This is what I mean. There's a big difference between saying someone has dated around or had multiple children compared to sexual assault of an unconscious patient.
Yeah.
It's a slightly different thing, lads. But I mean, 1800s.
I bet he fucking wasn't a ladies' man.
Why'd you say that?
Because he's having to put them under to...
Well, we don't even, we never really heard more about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Elizabeth. As an adult, she would go on to marry a tenant farmer. And that is where she would get the name Sugrue from. Like I said, her parents' name, was unknown.
Yeah.
And the couple would go on to have a few children together. Where Elizabeth's story takes a turn is at the death of her husband. After his death, Elizabeth was evicted, left with nothing and young children to care for. With no real prospects at this time in her life, Elizabeth set off on foot with her children towards Roscommon in hopes of a better life.
Must have been rough, that.
As a fair old distance to go by foot. It is not known why she chose Roscommon, but while making the journey, her youngest child died from exposure and starvation. Following the death of her child, it's most likely that they would have been buried in a shallow grave along the road. So it's been a tough old time for poor Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's rough.
But she does eventually get to Roscommon with her eldest child, Padraig, in tow.
Podrick and what?
Podrick in tow with her.
Oh.
That's something I actually wanted to bring up. Now, anyone I've known personally called Podrick is called Podrick.
Okay.
But there's also people who say Porrig. So I looked it up. I'm like, hang on, let me check this. Yeah?
Podridge.
What?
Podridge?
Porridge. Apparently, on the East Coast, it's more common to say Podrick. Yeah?
Yeah.
But more southern and west, apparently Porrig is more common.
So he'd be Porrig then?
He'd be Porrig, yeah. So I'm actually just an ignorant fuck for calling Podrick. So I'll try and say Porrig. Anyway, she makes it to Roscommon with Porrig, yeah? And it's thought that she settled in Gallowstown, not far from Roscommon town. An appropriately named town given the story.
Oh, Gallows.
Gallowstown.
So she were hanging people?
Yeah, she was a hangwoman.
Okay.
That's the second case on the trot with an unfortunate place name as well. Last episode, it was in Slaughter.
Oh, yeah.
Bit of a theme here. While in Gallowstown, Elizabeth made a living, although not a great one, by opening her accommodation to lodgers. But I imagine it wasn't the most welcoming of places, as she had earned the reputation of a hostile, violent woman.
Oh, so she'd got her back on her.
What?
So she'd got her back on her.
Yeah, she didn't put up with no shit.
Yeah.
Described as middle-aged, stout-made, dark-eyed, swarthy complexioned. A surly woman whose attention was focused on her one remaining son. Why are Irish women always considered, like we're always described like, oh, she was sturdy and she was mean and she was this. We have such a fucking reputation for this. We're, do you know what? If I was to like put us into a category, how Irish women are described, it's mistrunchable.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, we don't have a very flattering image.
Stout ridden. Is that what they said?
Stout made.
Stout made.
Yeah.
Guinness.
So like I said, her attention was now pretty much solely focused on her one remaining son. But the attention she did focus on him was not great.
Like, yeah, I suppose that would be normal if you've got, say, 2 kids or multiple kids and they've all died except one. You're going to do everything. Like, cherish that kid.
Well, some do believe that her overbearing behaviour did stem from a deep, unhealthy love of her son, like you said, for fear of anything happening to him.
Yeah.
But she was also described as a brutal, controlling and overbearing mother.
She's protecting.
I mean, there is the other thing to consider. She was an Irish mammy. And
it's the 1700s in Ireland. She was protecting her.
Well, I mean, Irish mammies tend to play by the rules of fuck around and find out. You know what I mean?
Wooden spoon.
They're not the most forgiving of people.
Yeah, lads, if you're ever with an Irish woman, if she pulls out a wooden spoon and starts walking towards you...
Run for your life.
Fucking leg it. I don't care if you know self-defense or what.
Fuck your Krav Maga.
They'll beat it out of you.
But Elizabeth had been through it. And, you know, like we said, with the death of her other child and living in poverty, it hadn't been easy go for Elizabeth.
Yeah.
But by the mid-1770s, Elizabeth's son had had enough of her controlling ways. She begged him to stay, but it was too late. He'd made up his mind. It's thought that he'd either joined the army as a means of escape or moved to America, possibly both. While away, he would still write to his mother and send her money, but after a few years, the letters stopped. Now, that could have possibly led Elizabeth to believe that he had died, and if that was the case, you can only imagine her despair.
She spiralled.
Or, if she believed that he simply didn't have the time for her, that could lead her to become even more bitter and hostile than what she already was.
Spiraled.
Well, I mean, over time, yeah, she did. Elizabeth became more reclusive, a more reclusive resident of the town.
Bit like us. We don't mess about with anyone in the local area.
I mean, I value my privacy. You know what I mean? I like my space.
Yeah.
My bubble. In 1789, a man arrived at Elizabeth's home seeking accommodation for the night.
200 years before I was born.
I assume she saw something of value on him. Maybe he was carrying a significant amount of money. Because that night, Elizabeth decided that she was going to kill this lodger.
Oh.
Yes, the plot thickens. Now, I couldn't find much information on how she went about it, but I believe she stabbed him to death.
I was going to ask, is this the acid bath thing?
No.
Oh, no, that was in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely different situation. So she stabbed him to death, right?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay?
Okay.
He's gone. Now she's like, right, grand. Let's have a little sneaky sneak.
Piss up.
And what?
Oh, I thought you were going to say she's like, let's have a knees up.
No, she's going through her shit. She's like, right, what can I get? Where's the money?
Yeah.
Where's the gold?
Yeah, to have a piss up.
Well, maybe. But she didn't have a lot of money, so she may have actually just wanted some food. Anyway, she goes through his stuff, and as she's rifling through his belongings and reading through his papers, she realises that the lodger was actually her son, Porrig, who had come back home. It's thought that
I seriously thought this was going to be like a movie, like something you'd see in a movie. Like, she went through his papers and he was coming for a job as an executioner, so then she took his papers and she got the job as the
No, not quite. It's not quite kind of like a Miss Congeniality type of situation, you know.
She went dressed as a man, hair tied up under a hat.
No. But then she took the hat off, the hair flowed down over her shoulders. Yeah. No. So the reason Elizabeth didn't recognise him is that it's thought he had disguised himself and had planned to either surprise her the following day by revealing his identity, or possibly he had concealed his identity in order to see, you know, if his mother's abrasive demeanour had changed over the years before he made the decision to let her back in his life. And bear in mind, this is a chunk later. This is a good few years later.
But back in 1700s, if he were in army, he wouldn't be wealthy from army.
Well, it was either he went into the army or he went over to America to work. It's not 100% sure of what the story is. Either way, once Elizabeth had realised what she had done, she ran screaming into the streets, completely distraught and inconsolable. She was arrested shortly after and went willingly. Following her arrest, Elizabeth was tried for the murder and convicted. She was sentenced to death by hanging and imprisoned in Roscommon Jail. So, not looking good for Elizabeth.
You'd think that's the end of the story.
You would, but when execution day came for Elizabeth, there was also 25 others due to be executed. The other criminal offences worthy of hanging included the likes of shoplifting, theft of sheep and cattle, also white boys.
What?
White boys. They were also known as levellers, which it was an organisation who would target landlords or collectors in an effort to defend the rights of tenant farmers.
Okay.
They were called white boys because of what they wore.
Okay.
So, comparatively to Elizabeth, she looks like a right hard bastard getting sent down for murder compared to these lads. But on that day that they were due to be executed, there was no executioner available, and no one else in the jail was too keen on taking on the task.
So she said, I'll do it.
Pretty much, depending on the telling of the story, they approached Elizabeth and she was like, yeah, all right, I'll do it, if you commute my sentence. Or there's others that believe she volunteered to do it.
Yeah.
You know, which,
okay.
I mean,
either
or.
Oh.
So the thing about Elizabeth is that she didn't just do this to help them out on a one-off. She was said to have held this position for years.
Like working off a sentence?
Well, she did it in exchange for her life. She wasn't going to be executed as long as she was taking on the task.
Yeah.
Not only did she assume the position of hangwoman, but she was said to have revelled in the suffering she inflicted. You know, executioners were not looked upon favourably, and Jesus Christ, can you imagine the horror, the devastation of a woman carrying out the duties of an executioner? It would have been looked at as grotesque and unfeminine. Also, I think when we hear executioner, we get this image of, you know, the kind of the hooded figure, but it wasn't actually the norm for them to hide their identity. And although outrageous that she was a woman, our Lizzie was no exception. She did not mask her identity in any way.
Well, yeah, like I've always thought they were hooded, like they wanted to protect their identity, but If you knew who they were, you wouldn't go near them.
So the
They're an
hooded
executioner.
executioners didn't tend to be hooded or masked or anything like that, but there are examples of it when it was, say, a high-profile execution, and they didn't necessarily want to be the one to have killed that figure. Do you get what I mean? So like I said, she was described as having revelled in the executions, and she did so under the title of Lady Betty. It was also said that Elizabeth would mark the death toll on her walls in charcoal.
Oh.
See, this is, as far as her enjoying the executions.
She's definitely enjoying it.
Well, I mean, possibly true if we go off what others had to say about her, or possibly just an embellishment to further the shock and awe of a woman holding this position.
So at what count did she get to?
I don't actually know.
Oh.
Yeah.
So she didn't mark it very well then.
It was reported that not only was Elizabeth responsible for hangings, but also floggings.
So she's at it with wooden spoon again.
She carries one on her. Something else Elizabeth had overseen was the public display of corpses of the criminals.
Gibbets.
Yes.
Yeah.
One such case was that of Michael Walsh, who was gibbeted.
It's gibbet.
I mean, I can't get over gibbet.
I know, gibbet's better. You fucking gibbet, yeah.
But when Michael Walsh was gibbeted, it was said to have drawn crowds of up to 30,000 people.
Fucking hell.
After his body had been displayed for a few days, poor old Michael was taken down and paraded through the town in a cart. We talked about this before.
Okay.
With the fucking them in a wheelbarrow and doing run round.
See, you shocked by how many people were watching it, but you got to think of how many idiots, millions, watch Big Brother. And that was entertainment back then.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you wouldn't have got 30,000 to watch Big Brother. What's that tell you?
I mean, I kind of feel like that part of the story might be slightly inflated. 30,000 seems a lot.
It does.
But if you also think the population was higher back then, because of, it was before certain things had occurred.
I'm not saying nothing. I was born in 89. I'm numb. I'm deaf and dumb to it.
But anyway, Michael was fucked into a wheelbarrow and brought for a go around the town.
Yeah.
Grand.
It's one of the most morbid fucking visions I've had.
It really is. It's
someone in a wheelbarrow getting pushed around.
It's truly fucking grotesque. Like, it's fucking horrible. In 1802, Elizabeth was pardoned of her crime due to her service to the jail. Although, I'm sure with nowhere else to go, Elizabeth still remained living in the jail until her death in 1807. I mean, she had a pretty good gig.
And did she, even when she got pardoned, did she just carry on execution and then?
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, yeah, she had a good gig. Like I said, she had a job, essentially.
Yeah.
She would have been fed and she would have been living rent-free. She may as well have stayed there and carried on working, Now, there's two stories as to how Elizabeth died. One being that she died of natural causes, nice and simple. No loose ends. The other being that she was murdered by another prisoner, which I admit does sound likely.
Yeah. Especially if the next day she was supposed to be hanging him.
Well, this account states that a prisoner who'd been breaking stone in the yard picked up a piece of rock and struck her across the head, killing her. I mean, I can imagine Elizabeth wasn't the most popular amongst the other prisoners.
No.
You know what I mean? Whether it be that she was the hangwoman, which, not the most liked people, or because she would have been receiving more favourable treatment because of that.
Yeah. And she was a free woman after murdering her son. People wouldn't have took kindly to that as well.
Well, I mean, I mean for the prisoners, though.
Yeah.
There's a few reasons why I can believe that they, smacked her over the head with a rock.
Yeah. They might have just done it as well because she's a woman.
I mean, that's another point. I mean, either way, there's a fair few reasons, that I can imagine she probably would have been looked upon as a traitor by the other prisoners.
Thing is, them prisoners are hypocrites because if they got offered that deal, they'd have took it. I'd have took it. They'd have said, hang 100 people for us over the next 10 years and you're free.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people didn't want the job. They didn't agree with it, or There were also comments made about, the availability of the executioner, that there's a chance that someone didn't step up to do it because they didn't agree with executing the white boys or levelers.
Okay.
After her death, it's thought that Elizabeth was buried within the grounds of the jail. Over the years, the story has been embellished, and as with many cases that date back a certain amount of time, it's unlikely we'll ever know the full story of Elizabeth's life, especially with an occupation such as executioner, and made even more shocking by the fact that she was a woman and someone who lived in poverty. I really wanted to tell the story of Elizabeth, but I was a bit kind of wary with the lack of documentation. How much of this is truth compared to tales passed on and altered along the way.
Yeah.
So a huge amount of the information, like I mentioned earlier, William Wilde came with. He would actually travel to Roscommon and talk to people. But this was decades after her death, and she'd actually already become somewhat of a scare tactic at that point.
Oh, okay.
The name Lady Betty was actually used to scare children into behaving.
Oh. Like the boogeyman.
Yeah, basically, if you don't fucking pack it in, Lady Betty will come and get you.
See, I'm saying boogeyman because we have a lot of American listeners, but it's bogey. Bogeyman.
Boogie as well, some people are saying apparently. Boogeyman. So there was a reference to Elizabeth Sugrue in the Philadelphia Press, printed on the 30th of August, 1883. Quote, "In Ireland, a sheriff once, not being able to find a hangman, hired a hangwoman." So there is some dating back a bit. Now that's a while after her death.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, to separate the fact from the fiction can be a bit difficult.
Yeah,
But
obviously.
That's the story of Elizabeth Sugrue, or Lady Betty. I was originally going to do an episode on the occupation of executioner, which I do still intend to do, but when I came across Elizabeth's story, I had to cover it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, don't you think?
It's really interesting.
Now, there are a few other mentions of female executioners, but not kind of in the same leagues as Elizabeth. It seems there's more cases of women having stepped in to oversee rather than actually holding the position.
Okay.
But don't worry, I'm sure we will talk about them when we do cover the occupation of executioner. Now, someone I did want to mention before we leave this topic. Albert Pierpoint. You ever heard of him?
No.
He was described as an executioner by day and a landlord by night. It's like he just wants people to hate him.
Yeah.
So hangman was actually a bit of a family trade for this lad. His father and his uncle were also executioners.
And his father after him.
I mean, I'm getting that kind of a sense from it. But as far as I know, his uncle and his
And they
his
were all
father.
called Richard.
So he was a Yorkshireman.
Oh.
And after the execution of a Limerick man named Michael Manning in Mountjoy Prison, he was reported to have said, quote,
Uh-oh.
"I love hanging Irishmen. They always go so quietly and without trouble."
Oh,
End quote.
I thought something the complete opposite would come in.
Now what the hell is that all about? Excuse me?
What?
Rudeness.
What?
I love hanging Irishmen. Who's this fucking guy? What's his problem?
Where in Yorkshire? Oh,
West Yorkshire.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't claim him, do you?
No.
What's the crack with him?
I can't speak for it because he's West Yorkshire.
I came across this little shit and I was like, right, like I said, we're going to cover executioner more widely, not just one case. But I was just like, no, I have to put this in. Who the fuck is he? The absolute fucking neck of him. I love hanging Irishmen. What type of thing is that to say? How's that meant to make me feel, Neil?
I honestly thought you were going to say something like worse, like I love hanging Irishmen. They all squeal like a pig, or some. I thought you were going to say
something really fucking sadistic.
Yeah.
No, it's just they go so quietly without trouble. Like, fuck off.
Well, I suppose it makes his life easier, his job easier.
You're an executioner. You did not choose the easy route.
No, that were an interesting one. That, not the Yorkshireman. What it says about the Irish
No,
people.
we've been through too much.
Yeah.
There's no need to be saying that about
Like,
us.
I think you're just trying to dig up history and cause a bit of grief for me on social media.
Do you know, talking about Oscar Wilde, he actually had a quote about the Irish and the English.
Oh.
He said something along the lines of, the trouble is the English don't remember history. And the problem with the Irish is that they don't forget it. Which is very fucking true. It was so, like, that's not an exact quote, of course, but it's something like that. And it's nail on the head.
Well, he thought he had to declare genius. So.
I won't forget it.
So, Oddity?
Oddity. The Little Albert Experiment.
Oh, you're going to ask me? Are you asking me if I've heard of this?
I didn't, but it's a bit of a theme here, isn't it?
No.
No. So, the Little Albert Experiment was carried out by psychologist John B. Watson and one of his students, 21-year-old Rosalie Rayner.
Is Albert a cat?
What?
Is Albert a cat?
No.
Oh.
The experiment was a study of human conditioning. So, using certain signals or stimuli in order to evoke a specific response or reaction.
Okay.
Their goal was to see if they could condition a phobia into an otherwise emotionally stable child.
It's a bit fucking rotten, isn't it?
Not done yet. The subject of the study was a 9-month-old baby who, for the experiment, was referred to as Albert. 9 months old, Neil.
They're giving him a phobia.
Yes. Yes.
How do they know he hasn't already got a phobia?
Well, they kind of tested. So, basically, at first, they test his fear levels. Albert was exposed to things like cotton...
Peekaboo.
Well, cotton, wool, and masks, so kind of peekaboo. Both with and without hair, and burning newspapers. So things that are kind of not too bad. Like, well, that's to test if you're looking at me like I'm insane.
Did they put him on edge of a roof?
Well, to test if he's scared of the flames.
Okay.
Does he have a reaction to that, or to the different textures, or to the face being covered in the hair? You know.
Okay.
What's his fear level at?
Did they touch his eye?
Not you. He was also exposed to animals such as rabbits, a dog, and a monkey, and he showed little to no fear of any of these things. So they're quite kind of...
a baby.
Well, they're kind of... There's no immediate kind of trigger for him that he's like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So by the time Albert was 11 months old, they get further into the study and they begin trying to elicit a reaction out of him. A lab rat was placed near Albert, which he was allowed to pet and play with. But as Albert reached out to touch the rat, John and Rosalie created a loud, jarring noise behind Albert, which, by the way, the noise was a fucking hammer hitting a steel bar. I would probably shit myself too. So, by pairing a neutral stimulus, the rat, with an unconditioned stimulus, which was the loud noise, it caused him to cry and appear fearful. After repeating the process multiple times, Albert then became distressed at the sight of the rat and would attempt to crawl away as quickly as possible.
I wonder if, because I know they made a joke of it in How I Met Your Mother, but it is a legitimate technique what people do to manipulate someone if you're around them often enough. So, like, I'll give you an example. On How I Met Your Mother, Barney wanted to see Lily's tits, and he made this whole thing where it was over a span of like 6 months. Every time Marshall said, let's go to Shinjitsu, which was one of them restaurants with the hot plate thing, Barney would sneeze. Every time. Every single time it sneezed. So then it got to the point when he got the plan in motion, he sneezed, and Marshall was like, let's go to Shinjitsu. Like, that's the joke.
Mm-hmm.
But there is supposed to be a real thing, so I wonder if this is what started that.
No.
Oh.
No, conditioning is a thing. It was already established. They already knew about it.
Okay.
You really went round the houses on that one, didn't you? You could have just asked me. was this the first experiment of it? So, Albert had now been conditioned to associate the rat with a negative, fearful emotion. The fear would then bleed out to other things, such as the dog, rabbits, a fur coat, and cotton balls.
So they basically turned him into a nervous wreck?
Pretty much, yeah. So all of these things Albert had previously not given a shit about.
Yeah.
But it was a completely different reaction now. Although it was noted that over time his fear would ease, they could quickly bring it back by the addition of a loud noise and repeating the process.
Fuck's sake.
Learning to maintain the fear. It's fucked.
It's evil.
Well, after this portion of testing, Albert's mother abruptly pulled him from the testing. John and Rosalie were unable to continue with the final stages of their experiment, which was deconditioning.
Okay.
So they're going to put all that into him just to try and take it out for the crack. Now, you might think to yourself, who in the name of Jesus would expose their child to such horrific treatment in the first place? Well, it's not entirely sure. There was talk about the mother having been coerced into it, or that the mother didn't know the exact extent of the study that her son was participating in.
Yeah.
Either way, she was like, well, fuck you are, and took him out. Of course, this was a completely unethical study and should never have happened, but it was 1920 and people were terrible.
And where's this?
In America.
Of course it is.
I mean, it's also just such an unnecessary study, really. This could have been studied over time in a controlled environment using multiple subjects, not just traumatizing one poor child,
Yeah.
you know? Now, I've got another little side story for you.
What did it go on to be?
No, the identity of little Albert is kind of like, it's not quite known. They've kind of, there's different people who they think it could have been, but, you know. Now, during this study, John and Rosalie actually entered into a romantic relationship. Only problem was, John was married.
Oh.
But that didn't bother a man like John. His marriage was said to have ended in a bitter divorce, and he and Rosalie got hitched and went on to have 2 children, James and William.
And what did they do to these kids?
Well, this is it. I'm not just telling you that, oh, he was a cheating bastard just for the goss. There's a method to it.
Yeah.
Method to the madness here. Years later, James would state that his father's views on behaviourism, paired with strict parenting, affected both he and his brother's emotional capability and self-esteem. Leading on from that, both of his children from his second marriage, as well as one of his kids from his first marriage, suffered with depression and attempted suicide, resulting in the death of William.
Oh. Fucking hell.
His granddaughter, actress Mariette Hartley, has also attributed her struggles with psychological issues to the application of her grandfather's behaviourism theories to her upbringing. So yeah, John B. Watson, bit of a prick.
Bit.
A
loon.
I mean, that's very sad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the actual experiment itself is so fucking horrific. But, I mean, whatever about your theories, to actually apply it to your family, for the love of Jesus, keep it ethical and keep your fucking family out of it.
Right, before he even did it to his kids. So he was doing it to the other one, Albert. Why? Like, I get it's a theory and everything, but... So, you were going to get a kid what didn't have fears, didn't have phobias, make them have phobias, and then take them phobias away. Why?
I mean, like I said, to them it was an experiment. It was like, let's do it. But they're not considering, like I said, the ethical side of it, that this is a fucking person. Like,
I get that. I mean, but the end game. But
to decondition them.
Yeah, no, but after that. So, once it works, right, we know we can use this for...
It's just a study.
It's horrible.
But it's like Pavlov's dog, right? He studied conditioning.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's kind of, this stems off of that.
Right, okay.
So it's just furthering a study. I'm not okaying it. I think it's fucking disgraceful. But that's, you know, yeah, it's no good.
What a prick.
You showed me a video the other day and it was someone traumatizing their child.
Oh.
Like, you were like, oh, isn't that funny? I'm like, no, not really, because the child is so distressed. I don't find it funny.
What she's on about, it was a guy, he put a clothes peg. Americans probably won't know what that is. It's a clothes peg, you use it to hang clothes on a washing line. A washing line is something you have in your garden. He puts a clothes peg on his tongue and he's like, takes it off, puts it on his little toddler's tongue, takes it off. And then he turns, he puts a fake tongue in his mouth, puts the clothes peg back on the fake tongue, gets the kid to pull it off, and the tongue stretches out, comes off, and then he runs around the house going, and the kid's screaming. I thought it was funny. Megan did not.
Do you still think it's funny after hearing about poor little Albert? No, do you know what I mean, though? It's kind of like something as an adult, which is like, haha, funny. You don't know how that shit will affect you. Like, that child could be 25 going, I remember. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe that's what happened to me. Maybe when I was a toddler, my dad was there with
Poking your eye.
clown mask on.
I thought you were going to go for the eye thing.
Oh yeah, he could have poked me in the eye.
Well, what if he did that? What if he put ketchup on his eye and pretend he pulled it out or something?
Soaked my trousers and left me fucking laid there because I don't like being in wet trousers. Yeah.
You've got quite a list of fears, really, don't you?
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. Find us on Patreon, TikTok, Facebook and Instagram. If you have a case suggestion or maybe even your own story, email us at mortalmusingspodcast@gmail.com.